Michigan State football, their offense wins the spring showcase, so either the offense is back or our defense is not good or somewhere in between. We're going to talk about it all position by position. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedon. College terms and conditions apply. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Or, hey, since it's such a special day, the MSU Spring Showcase, we're doing this on a Saturday night. We are partying it up live on YouTube right now. If you're catching the replay on Sunday or Monday, whatever day you're listening to this, hey, thank you all so much for giving us some of your time. If you ever want to reach out, LockedOnSpartans@gmail.com is the place to find us with any comments, questions, segment ideas as we go into the offseason. Come one, come all to LockedOnSpartans@gmail.com. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, comment below who impressed you the most during the spring showcase, and let's get after it. The way we're going to do this is we're just going to go position by position. We're going to bring up any news, any takeaways that happen, and then add some commentary. Also, guys, there are some transfer portal targets in the mix. We're going to bring those up position by position too. But the man of the hour, the man of the offseason, pretty much. If not for Jonathan Smith, then it is his quarterback, Aidan Chiles. We are going to start right there, who I thought looked fine on Saturday. Nothing more, nothing less. But, guys, like that's okay. You can just look fine at a spring showcase throwing just 14 passes in the live game portion because it's all good. This is what I mean here, guys. Like, look, we'll talk about the good right now. Like, he kicked the thing off with a slant to Montori Foster, hit him right in stride. Montori Foster took it for about 15 yards after the catch. Just a great festive start to the spring showcase. And then he throws down the sideline to Montori Foster later on during the 2-minute drill, hit him in stride at pretty tight coverage too on that pass, may I add. And then on a nice wheel route by Nate Carter, Chiles to Carter, end zone, touchdown. Spartan Stadium's just rocking after that, right? So, no, those were the good moments. Sure, he had some moments, too, where he tried to fit the ball in tight windows. Didn't work out. But I got to say, like, even when he did try to throw the ball into very, very tight spaces, he didn't throw a pick. He didn't throw it over, the receiver's head into the safety that's dropped back behind him. Like, it was all good. It was all fine. But what you saw, again, just 14 passes, including one 17-yard scramble. Hey, these legs are going to be something we are going to fall in love with this autumn because we haven't had a dual threat quarterback here for quite some time. But this is what you are seeing. You are just seeing that the floor is there, guys, right? It is already higher than anything that we had last year. No disrespect to the guys that we love with Caden Hauser, Noah Kim, Sam Levitt too, of course. But Aidan Chiles just has that floor that is already starting right there. And that's not the only reason why he was ranked the number one transfer quarterback per 24/7 Sports, but it's also that ceiling. Like, this guy can be a sensational quarterback one day in his career, perhaps even a first-round draft pick. That's what that ranking is predicated on, right? It's not just how good he is right now, which, by the way, right now, he's solid. Like, he's a fine quarterback. But, man, if he could just grow later on in this year, or I hate to jump years, but even in 2025, like, that's what that ranking is all about. I mean, just off the heels of a basketball season, think of Aidan Chiles almost like Xavier Booker, right? He comes in as a 5-star, McDonald's All-American. God, why was he ranked so high? It's because his ceiling is right up there with the best of them. Aidan Chiles, you've seen it. You've seen the big arm in some practice sessions. It was hard to see it today. It was a very blustery day in Spartan Stadium. So even some of those overthrows, I mean, just, God, you can't fault the guy too much for having some wonky throws into that windy day in Spartan Stadium, but we have seen it all, and it's just nice. And all, guys, and you know what else is really nice about all this too? Is no drama about a quarterback battle going on. I love this as a fan. You probably love this as a fan. What do you think the players, the receivers, the linemen, the coaches feel about this too? That there is no controversy going into the summer. No one's pitting their side. There's no politics involved. It's just Chiles or bust. And I think that is just, God, such a healthy thing for just everyone involved, from the players, the coaches, and let's bring up the most important people, guys, us fans. This is going to be healthy for us fans too. Aidan Chiles, not the only quarterback that was slinging the ball around Spartan Stadium. Tommy Schuster, which I got to say, when he was huddled up with the rest of the quarterbacks in individual drills, I'm looking at him thinking, okay, oh my, is he still in high school? Now, obviously, that's not the case. He set records at the FCS level in North Dakota. But, hey, he doesn't physically look like a Big Ten quarterback. But when you saw him throw the ball around, yeah, that's a guy that is mature. That's a guy who is poised. That is a guy you want as your backup quarterback. He hit Nick Marsh for a nice touchdown in the second half, I believe that was. Sure, ball was a little wobbly, but again, blustery day in Spartan Stadium. Tommy Schuster has been being talked up by all the coaches so far this offseason. You saw why there. Like, God forbid if Aidan Chiles does go down. Now, is it just plug in and play? Tommy Schuster is going to be as good as Aidan Chiles? Let's not get too ahead of our skis here, but at least it's competent quarterback play that you can turn to, and it's way better than just bang, turning straight over to a true freshman quarterback, because Michigan State, they do have two of those. Rylan Jesse is one of them, and then Alessio Milivojevic, who seems to be the third quarterback right now, which I think is an important takeaway too. Right now, Alessio Milivojevic is the third quarterback. So, say Aidan Chiles, Tommy Schuster, they're sharing a moped ride right down Shaw Lane, and they hit a pothole, and oh my God, they both suffer broken collarbones. I'm not wishing this, but weird things happen. That is who is going to be the quarterback right now, should the season kick off on April 21st, it seems. And I got to say, before going any further, a week ago, I really didn't think we'd be getting this many takeaways from the spring showcase. It didn't even look like there was going to be any in-game action. But not only did you get the in-game action, they tipped their hand at who the starters are pretty early on and throughout the sessions, whether it was individual sessions, the team sessions. So thank you, Jonathan Smith, for at least giving one talking head something to talk about and many great fans something to listen about. So let's go on to running back right now. You saw Nate Carter, you saw Brandon Tulis, you saw Jalen Berger. Nate Carter, he got a touchdown within the first two plays of the live simulation, the scrimmage there. But the biggest takeaway for me, Jalen Berger, RB3 right now. Now, this is a guy, obviously, was the backup running back last year. He came to Wisconsin, his first school, as a former four-star recruit. And now, you got true freshman Brandon Tulis seemingly already jumping him in the depth chart. Now, that is fascinating for two reasons. One, obviously, okay, that means the staff doesn't really think too highly of Jalen Berger right now. And number two, the more fun takeaway is they are already starting to think the world of Brandon Tulis here. So, Brandon Tulis, solid showing, good at contact. So, look, we're going to see a lot of him, I would presume, this offseason. And just for, a little sidebar here, Jaron Mangum, he did not suit up today, so I don't know if that muddies the waters whatsoever, but the staff does love themselves some Brandon Tulis, and this would not be the first time in Jonathan Smith or Brian Lindgren's career where they find a three-star running back from the state of Texas and has them contribute immediately. We saw it with Damian Martinez over at Oregon State, so hey, maybe some more Lone Star magic for this staff. So we're going to go right into transfer news, though, because as fun as it is to have a true freshman be your backup running back, as good as he could be very early on, that kind of telegraphs that you want to have something else there in the running back room, and that is what Michigan State is busy doing. They have two targets in their sights, one of them on campus today out of the transfer portal. Andrew Paul out of Georgia. Yes, that Georgia, guys. Now, last year, Andrew Paul, 129 yards. He had a rushing touchdown, also a receiving touchdown. Now, last year for the Dogs, obviously that is a very talented team. He was one of the three guys that were kind of sharing RB3 splits. Now, RB3, I mean third-string running back splits. There was about three guys that had 20-some carries. The first two guys, well over 100 carries. So he was kind of in that party of third-string running backs right here. Now, this would be his third year coming up in college. The first year, unfortunately, never got to play, suffered an ACL injury in the offseason leading up to his true freshman season. But at 5'11", 218 pounds, the guy's built like a Power 5 running back. You don't have to worry about that. And one thing that sticks out to me when you go back and watch the few highlights you could find out on the internet, it's immediately his vision and his patience. Like, that is something that you have there with Andrew Paul. So he was on campus today, and also hopefully to get on campus here in a little bit. I believe he's actually getting on campus sometime this week, is K'Ron Lynch-Adams, another running back, this one out of UMass. Now, unlike Andrew Paul, who only has, a few carries in his career, just 129 yards, K'Ron over at UMass, he amassed over 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns, and he also had 20 catches out of the backfield too. We like to see that. 5'10", 205 pounds, same thing, has a great build already, and man, this guy is shifty. He bounces off tacklers. He also had a really good game last year against Auburn too. I know that UMass doesn't have the strongest schedule in the nation, but even against the big boys like Auburn, he also, if you want to throw Toledo into that mix too, he had a really strong game against the Rockets as well. So that is the 4-1-1 on K'Ron Lynch-Adams and Andrew Paul. Keep your eye on that because it is clear the staff wants to add a running back in this spring cycle. Folks, we're going to be talking more positions here, but first need to talk your ears off about LinkedIn Jobs. Small business owners, we're talking about you. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to go check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and, my favorite part, for free. Now, LinkedIn isn't just your normal job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you cannot find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open for the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, well, point blank period, you are looking in the wrong place. So join the 2.5 million small businesses that use LinkedIn for their hiring. Because guys, they know that you wear a lot of hats. You might not have time to resource that hire. So join those small businesses. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, keeping with the offense here, we are going to be talking about the wide receiver position. First and foremost, your two wideouts. No surprise here, Montorie Foster, Jerron Glover. But the first slot receiver to trot out to that field, I got to say, a little bit of a surprise. Isaiah Johnson in his second year, the guy that was kind of just a middling three-star recruit out of the state of Virginia, he's out there with the ones. Let's go, Isaiah. And not just the ones at slot receiver, but Montorie Foster, Alante Brown, they were practicing punt returns, as well as Isaiah Johnson. So how about that for a nice little spring showcase surprise? Now, I don't know if this was a surprise, but it was still great to see at the spring showcase, and that is one Nick Marsh. And guys, even before the scrimmage portion started, even before he had that touchdown, you could tell that, oh yeah, we might be seeing some Nick Marsh here. Just like I said with Tommy Schuster, talking with the rest of his quarterbacks, how he kind of looked, physically undersized. Nick Marsh, as he's with his peers, with the wide receivers, you get it. Like, you are thinking, excuse me, this guy should still be in high school currently? No. He already looks built, not just for college football, but also Big Ten football. Of course, you saw it. He had to adjust on the throw by Tommy Schuster to score that touchdown. He also had another great catch in coverage too. Nick Marsh, guys, and look, I'm not going to, be this whole, hey, told you so, but we've been talking up Nick Marsh here on this podcast. And again, the reason I'm not going to do the whole told you so thing is he's a top 150 recruit. A lot of people have told you so, but this is great to see that this could be an instant impact guy. Now, the only problem is where do you find room for him on the field? Could he be a slot receiver? I mean, he'd be a massive, quite literally a massive slot receiver, but does he bump off Montorie Foster, Jerron Glover? Look, I'm sure this coaching staff is going to figure out a way to make this happen. But yeah, Nick Marsh, guys, it's not just the ranking out of high school. You can see it through his physical build and his performance just in that 61-play scrimmage. And that's all it takes for us to get that fired up. But yeah, Nick Marsh was that real deal. Now, with that said, Michigan State is still going to be looking for a receiver in the transfer portal. They have Jarvarius Johnson coming to campus pretty soon here out of Auburn. Now, that could very well be a guy that profiles for that slot receiver. I mean, this guy is a speed demon. He has some experience punt returning, but yes, for that speedy slot receiver. Javarius Johnson out of Auburn is the guy to keep an eye on this week. Now we got two more groups for the offensive line and tight end. The offensive line is who we will go to next because the starters of Ashton Lepo, Gino Vandermark, Tanner Miller, Christian Big, Dooley Phillips, and then, sorry, my goodness gracious, guys, Brandon Baldwin were in the mix as the starters too. Now, Jacob Merritt, he also got some run too at that tackle position, the left tackle position. Now, Jacob Merritt, former walk-on, number 69. You guys might know him on Twitter as Johnny Cockslam. And if you understand that reference, that means you are way too online and you need to lower your screen time. But yes, good to see him in the mix. Surprising to see him in the mix. But hey, you know what? Like, this is what happens probably more at offensive line than any other position is walk-ons making a name for themselves at the position. So there you go. Gavin Brocious, we want to give a nod to him too. He was in the 2 deep. He was with the backups, but he did get a little run with the starters there. But I got to say, we also want to pull out Christian Phillips. The nickname Big Dooley is no joke. That is a massive hunk of offensive lineman right there. And at Nate Carter's first touchdown run, the second play of the day, he just threw Cal Halliday aside as if he was just throwing a toddler to the ground. That is a mammoth man. So, hey, look, I know that Luke Newman still has yet to come here. He still has yet to battle for whatever spot he will be. It's been long said that it'll be one of the interior lineman spots. Will be Gino Vandermark's spot? Probably not. Tanner Miller? No. Like, that guy's going to have the center spot locked up. But could he give Christian Phillips a run? I would suppose, but man, Christian Phillips, if that's your first interior offensive lineman off the bench, you're feeling pretty good about things. I thought he had a really strong showing. Now, I do want to bring this up. Stanton Rammel, he did not participate. That's a former 4-star recruit, suffered a bad knee injury last year. He was in a brace, so he did not compete. And then Ethan Boyd, nowhere on the field. It's not like he was just wearing his jersey and he was on the sideline. He was not anywhere. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Of course, as the spring transfer window is open, you kind of wonder if there's anything there. I'm not saying there is, not saying there isn't, but I'd be lying to you if I saw that and I thought, that's weird. I wonder if one of our starting tackles, presumably going into the spring, is going to be headed elsewhere. But hey, we will update you when that time comes. Now, Jonathan Smith, he did say that there still is a way to go for this offensive line, but he also said this was by far the best they have looked in their 15 practices. So just wanted you to hear it from Jonathan Smith and not just from me blabbing on and on. Jonathan Smith felt great about the offensive line in this last practice, but yeah, I mean, obviously still a long way to go with this new outside zone run scheme. Tight end, guys, I got to say, I don't have much for you. Jack Valliant, obviously the starter. I thought it'd be interesting to see who the second guy was, and they did go to a 12 personnel, meaning one running back, 2 tight ends very early on. That second tight end, Michael Masunis. Now, Brennan Parachek, we've been talking him up all spring, did not participate. He was in a walking boot on the sideline, so that was an injury scratch right there. So there is the whole offense. We're going to dig into a little bit of the defense here in a quick second, but first, you need to talk your ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook. With playoffs galore happening, we're talking NBA, NHL. We also got the PGA Tour in full swing right now. MLB is rolling right now. Get all the action done over at FanDuel Sportsbook because, like I said, it's playoff time in the NBA, NHL. And FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That is $150 win or lose. It truly is that simple, and there is no shortage of things to bet on. Even if you want to just fancy a wager on our Michigan State football Spartans after that spring showcase, you know FanDuel has all of the futures hooked up over there. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. It's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Now let's dive back into it. Let's switch sides of the ball here. Let's go to the defense. The team that lost this scrimmage. That's right. 31-24. Defense starts with a 14-0 lead. It's modified scoring. Nevertheless, this is actually the first time the defense has lost in the 3 scrimmages this spring cycle. We're going to start here with the secondary. Now, Dylan Tatum, he was lined up as the free safety. Malik Spencer was your strong safety. Chance Rucker and Chuck Brantley were your cornerbacks. Now, Jaden Mangum, he did not participate. He was on the sideline. He did go through warmups, but I would assume that this was just an injury scratch or just taking some precautions. Yeah, we're not going to get too bent out of shape about that, but was interested to see where Dylan Tatum was going to be here because, like we've been saying all offseason, well, golly gee Willikers, that seems like a guy you might want to have at cornerback. That is a very talented player right there, but he's kind of that tweener position. He could play nickel, he could play cornerback, he could play safety, and there he was at free safety today, playing that center field position. Now, we do want to shine a light here on Malik Spencer because he got some love from a big name in the NFL media. This is Jordan Schultz. He is an NFL insider for Bleacher Report. If you're on Twitter, you probably can't go a day without seeing his face on the timeline. He wrote this: have asked a couple of scouts about names to watch for the 2025 NFL draft. Michigan State defensive back Malik Spencer has come up. 6'1", 205-pounder with quickness and athleticism, had 72 tackles and 6 pass breakups last season for the Spartans. Spencer has a shot to elevate himself into the first round with a strong junior season for Sparty, who plays its spring game today. So my goodness. I mean, that kind of just came out of nowhere, right? I don't know if Jordan Schultz has connections with anyone that works with Malik Spencer, but high remarks right there. And I got to say, I don't think it's too far-fetched that he could be a high draft pick. I mean, first round? The first round seems a little crazy, but like surely he could be a day 2 pick. I mean, this is a guy that was getting reps as a true freshman, and he's only learned, he's only gotten better. Now, I gotta say, the one moment that I really saw from Malik Spencer today, like, wasn't a positive one. It was the missed open field tackle on a weird angle to Nate Carter. But again, guys, like we've seen Malik Spencer play enough the last few years that we're just gonna excuse that. I mean, he's obviously a plus player, but don't just take it from me. Take it from national NFL media guy Jordan Schultz. Talking up Malik Spencer. So there you have it. Just want to mention Armarion Smith, who was a safety last year, and then Samar Melvin. He was the cornerback transfer from Iowa last year. They were not there. Those were one of the guys that just not only were not on the sidelines, they just point-blank period were not seen in Spartan Stadium. So keep an eye on those names. Linebacker, other than who was starting, what they look like, there wasn't much to take away from the linebacker position. Wayne Matthews, that's your coverage linebacker. That's who Nate Carter caught the pass over on that wheel route later on in the first half. But your starters today, Cal Halliday, Jordan Hall, and then Jordan Turner and Wayne Matthews. I mean, they also got enough run where it really just seems like you have 4 starting linebackers just rotating the same 2 positions. But I got to say, my goodness gracious, Jordan Turner looks like he is just chiseled like a statue. Like that is a guy where if you saw him just walking down the hallway, you would not have any questions as to what he does for a living. That's a guy that plays a linebacker at a Power 5 level. The guy is built, no doubt about it. Also, Angelo Gross starting as nickel, and then Darius Snow, he got into some nickel work too. So that's just the takeaway from the linebackers. All 4 of those guys, they'll be rotating throughout the year. Of course, Joe Rossi likes to throw different looks out there. Defensive line is where we are going to travel to next. Obviously, there was a lot of news for the defensive line room this week with Simeon Barrow diving into the transfer portal for the 18th time. And I don't know if Michigan State is going to get him back out of the portal for a 19th time, guys. So your starters, these were at the ends. Avery Dunn, which I thought was interesting, and then Chris Bogle. Those are your 2 defensive ends. Inside, Derek Harmon, the name we all know, and then Daquan Douse, the transfer from Georgia Tech. I got to say, though, of those 4 guys, the one that stuck out the most to me today was not one of those 4 names. How you like that? Quindarius Dunnigan, I got to say, it was my big takeaway here from the defensive side of the ball. He got a sack early on. Yes, it was against the second team, but he was able to break that up. And then also a tackle for loss not too long after that against the first team offensive line. Blew the play up, got to Nate Carter immediately. So Quindarius Dunnigan out of Middle Tennessee State, a guy that's going to have no shortage of ways to get on the field, whether he could play inside, on the edge. That is a name that you want to watch for this fall. Now, I did like this. During some pass rush situation opportunities, they did have a front 4 of Jordan Hall, Chris Bogle, Jalen Thompson. That's a true sophomore out of Detroit who had a really strong finish to his year last year, and Derek Harmon. I do wonder if that ever switches to instead of Jordan Hall, maybe Quindarius Dunnigan, or maybe instead of Derek Harmon, you throw in Quindarius Dunnigan. Nevertheless, That's a strong 4-man front for your NASCAR pass rush package right there. Now, one other big name that was not seen at all, not even on the sidelines, was Andrew DePape. All right, that's a former 4-star, former top 200 recruit last year. He plays defensive end, so he was not there. Now, he came in with Jalen Thompson, who, like we just brought up, he's going to have no problem finding his way on the field. And the reason I said that it was interesting that Avery Dunn was out there with the starters is because I still think, despite what we saw at the showcase, that Jalen Thompson will take one of those 2 starting roles. I think it'll be Bogle and Jalen Thompson when the season finally kicks off against Florida Atlantic here in a few months. But yeah, that's just why I said the interesting quip about Avery Dunn. But no, DePape, By Job was there. He still looks a little, I don't want to say lanky or anything, because obviously the guy's, still built like a professional or a Power 5 athlete, I should say. But yeah, I do wonder how they will use him, or if By Job gets used a lot here in the next few months. So that's one thing that will be a storyline as we go into fall camp. Just By Job, how will he look? Will he be physically fit? Now there's transfer news, of course, on the defensive line, because with Simeon Barrow leaving to the portal, you want to patch that hole up, because guys, it was on the inside, at least the defensive tackles, it was Daquan Douse, Derek Harmon, and then Maverick Hansen. Okay, after those 3 guys, you're playing guys like Ben Nelson, good for Ben Nelson, but he's a walk-on. Like, there's only 3 defensive tackles on scholarship right now. Alex Van Sumeren, sidelined still. I maybe nursing an injury, maybe it was precautionary, but still, nevertheless, at the spring showcase, 3 defensive tackles on scholarship. So they want to patch that up. They have 2 guys coming in. Eddie Kelly from Georgia Tech, as if Georgia Tech fans probably don't love Michigan State enough for taking Daquan Douse from them. Hey, here's Eddie Kelly, okay, a guy that could just fit right next to Daquan Douse. Anthony Johnson, now he is from Youngstown State. I'd be a little surprised if he lands at Michigan State, because this is a Pittsburgh native. Pitt is in his Final Four as well as Michigan State, so I wouldn't hold out too much hope for that. But yes, guys, I would expect Michigan State, especially as the transfer portal gets even more popping after more programs end their spring cycle here, expect defensive tackle to be near the top of that list. Also, Anthony Jones, defensive end from Indiana. I believe we talked about him earlier last week, but yeah, keep an eye out on that. Obviously, with Indiana, he knows Chad Wilt. That is the rush edge specialist for Michigan State. So there is already a working relationship right there between Anthony Jones and the Michigan State staff. Now we will end on special teams. We already brought up the returners. Isaiah Johnson, Montori Foster. Could it be either of those 2 guys or Alante Brown? But let's talk kicking. Jonathan Kim, he missed a kick today, so I guess we got to cut him, right, guys? I guess we just got to send him out to pasture and say good luck at your next stop. No, I'm obviously kidding. I'm not too worried about Jonathan Kim, because like we've been saying even last year, even his misses look good, don't they? But just like we were talking about with Aidan Chiles and how some of those throws may have been affected by the wind. Tommy Schuster certainly was on that touchdown pass. I'm not going to, absolutely bury the kid for missing a 44-yard field goal with the wind just snatching it out of the air and taking it almost to the bleachers. So, yeah, if you think I'm being a little too easy on Jonathan Kim, you're probably right. I was that scarred by how the kicking situation was before he even got here. So, yeah, I'm going to excuse the guy who made a 58-yard field goal last year. Also, I got to shout out my guy, Rick. He was boots on the ground texting me insight from the spring showcase. And he said before the scrimmage that Jonathan Kim is having no problem kicking out there. So obviously we're not going to worry about Jonathan Kim, guys. Now just parting words, not for me, but your head coach, Jonathan Smith. Now, he was asked about what the next steps are for this program. Again, guys, the spring session's over. This was the 15th and final practice, so let's take you into the sunset with this quote from Jonathan Smith. Next steps, really, this next week, every player is going to get with their position coach, kind of have a one-on-one meeting and recap the spring and see where that's at. After they finish that, I'm going to try to get one-on-one with the roster over the next week and really through the month with travel plans and finals and really learn about how they're experiencing things, how we can improve with their with stuff. I think it's important to go 15 practices, sit down, recap, and see where everyone's at and see how we can take the next steps. Also added, I really like the work we got done, but there's a ton of work to do. It's a huge summer for us. So Seems productive. Seems like a lot of room for improvement, which you would expect when you are bringing in new schemes on both sides of the ball, of course, guys. But hey, you know what? He's getting FaceTime with all the players, personal relationships being worked on, and it is just the beginning. No, sorry, it's the end of the beginning of a new chapter for Michigan State football. So yes, of course, when this transfer portal gets popping, you know where to find the news. We're going to try to drag some guests onto this week's show to talk about their takeaways from the spring showcase. And oh yeah, that's right, basketball still having an off season. Who knows if they'll get a transfer or not? Stay tuned to find out. But folks, guys, especially those of you that are watching right now on YouTube, really do appreciate all of you. Podcast listeners, you guys are all truly the best. So, guys, hey, let's have a great rest of the weekend. Love you all. Go Green.